Who's the other lady with Thomas? Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll hear from them later. Right, I think we're right. Everybody right, eh?
Yeah.
Right, okay. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending. We appreciate you people being here. I would especially like to welcome Alison, who is currently stepping in for the position of Steve Gibbling, who's away on leave, and Alison is stepping in on his behalf. I must admit, it's nice to see you. It really is. I'd also like to welcome Thomas and Sarah. We'll hear from you later, and I look forward to that. Lydia, it's nice to see you back. It really is, my dear, and thank you. We look forward to your contribution over the next nine months. As usual, I'd like to introduce John Very, who's my deputy chair, Calvin Payne. We have two late apologies from Sian Yoon, who will be arriving shortly, and Phil Freeman. So we apologise at this stage for them. I'd like to also, who don't know Therese, she is the mainstay. Well, she might anyway. So, but we've got a bit to get through today, and then we've got of course, the forum later, which probably many of you have registered for. So we look forward to that. Okay, can we move on? Apologies. We've got two late apologies, as I say, from Sian and Phil. Sorry. So Lydia has moved, Calvin has seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right, I have an item of identification of extraordinary business, which will be taken up at the end of the meeting. And is there anybody else who wants to? John, do you want to do your identification of business or not?
Yes, I'd like to sort of just briefly mention that.
Okay, that's fine. Is there any other further that anybody wants to bring up that's not already on the agenda? Okay, we'll then move on. Conflicts of interest. Has anybody got any conflicts of interest? Right, thank you. The financial reporting. You want Thomas to do that now, if we can? Are you happy with that, Thomas and Sarah? Thank you. Do you mind just taking a seat down there? Now, there is some spare agendas if anybody wants some on the table there. Any? Aaron? Just over there. Oh, you got one? Daryl, have you got a spare agenda there? You're right. Okay. Right. Thank you, Thomas.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
You talk to attachment one at this stage?
Sarah.
Oh, Sarah, I beg your pardon.
Attachment 1 is the
Finance report.
finance report for the 30th of November 2024. Yes. Okay. So Malvern Community Board is in a year-to-date deficit of $10,183 as at 30th November. Favourable to budget by $4,930. Year-to-date revenue to November was $70,447, below budget by $898. This is due to the timings of collections and is expected to be recovered by the financial year end. Year-to-date operating expenses for the period were $34,750, below budget by $5,828. Support charges are on budget of $45,880. The favourable variances year-to-date, favourable to budget are training expenditure, which is favourable to budget due to no spend being against this cost. So the year-to-date budget is $1,562. Sister City expenses, also no spend year-to-date on the budget of $415. Members' year-to-date remuneration of $24,587 is favourable to budget by $713 due to the local government members' determination of 2024 being made by the Remuneration Authority. It was received after the budget had been set. Training and conference expenses are $473 favourable to budget. Vehicle expenses are favourable to budget by $3,622. The unfavourable variances compared with budget are advertising and general expenses, unfavourable to budget by $369, mainly due to costs incurred for the MCB awards and the printing of MCB brochures. Refreshments are year-to-date $572 unfavourable to budget. This is mainly due to a catering bill of $543 for the MCB awards on the 7th of October. Telephone costs of $535 are slightly over budget by $31. That concludes the finance report for the period 30th of November 2024.
Just a matter of clarification. Looking at the fact that the board is better able to operate when we have timely and accurate information, no reflection or adverse comment on staffing. Just looking at the members' remuneration, I'm just asking, and I don't have a financial background, why isn't there a budget adjustment to the budget? So rather than it coming in as a favourable variance, why isn't the budget adjusted for factors that are almost certain?
Okay. Do you want to take that one, Alison?
I'm happy to answer that one. So as part of like the broader budget setting, we set a budget for a financial year. This year, we have not done any reforecasting. So to answer your question, if we had done a reforecast for the broader budget, which would include Malvern Community Board, we would have picked it up as a forecasting adjustment, but we've not gone through that process this year. So that's why the budget is still sitting as it is.
Is there any possibility, without having unnecessary time and expenses, that the maybe the February meeting we could put on the agenda an adjustment and discuss a budget and reallocations that will take us through until October 2025?
I'm reluctant to adjust budgets for like this instance, but what we could do is put a note there that permanently says that we recognise that because we've not done a forecasting, we're going to have a permanent variance it's going to carry across. If we adjust budgets for one area, we would generally prefer to adjust budgets across the board, and we're not able to do that. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alvin.
Yeah, thank you for providing the November financial statements. Ordinarily what happens is when we have a meeting, we put on the 31st of the month previous. So I understand there's been a Christmas New Year break, so there's a bit of delay there. So I was just wondering if I could request that as soon as the December numbers are available, if we could have access to those, please, so that by the next meeting in February, we can be looking at December and January data, and we've got it all sorted. Because I do note there's some discrepancies in these numbers with the travel expenses that need updating because of what was claimed and what wasn't claimed. So it'd be great if we could get some clarity around where our budgets are heading, because we only have a short time up till the end of June to make sure that we're in line with budgets.
Happy to do that. Yeah.
The other thing, Justin, I did notice that your yearly budget for the council expenses just approximately is 110,000. And we've still got 9 months to go. We're up to 109 now, according to these figures. No?
The financial year that these budgets are for is 30 June. So these budgets,
Sorry,
the financial year for your finances that are presented here are to the 30th of June.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep. Colin?
Can I help you answer that, Bruce? The 109 figure is the current budget for 25-26, the next year. I think that's where you've seen the number.
John?
Yeah, just looking at the support charges, the question that I'm struggling with is that I know that it's 0.XX of whatever, but I find it very difficult when I'm talking to people in the Hawkins subdivision and they're saying, well, it just seems to me that we're paying a targeted rate. There's been an accumulated surplus, and I'm making the assumption, given my lack of financial literacy, that that's probably been accumulated during the 3-year, 2.5-year term of this board. And the question I'm constantly faced is, what's going to happen to that large amount of money? And I would like to ask, what is the financial or legal impediment, if any, for that amount of money being available for the board to discuss with community associations in Malvern and residents in Malvern, for that money to be redistributed in a prudent and financially fiscal manner prior to the 30th of June. And I'm quite happy for that to be more fully explained in the February meeting. Thank you.
Thomas?
Could you just clarify what you're actually asking again? Could you just clarify what your question is in just simple terms, and then?
So in broad terms, and I'm being broad, there's $100,000 that's sitting there as accumulated money that's come from a targeted rate that's been levied on ratepayers within the Malvern ward in the current term of this board.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would like to be able to explain to people when I meet with them is that that money at the end of June isn't just going to disappear into the consolidated accounts, but prior to June, there is an opportunity for the board to consult with the community and redistribute that money back to the community as it's been surplus, no doubt due to the good, prudent financial management and running of the board previously.
Right. Yes, it could be. However, the money definitely will stay there, and at 30th of June, whatever money is remaining in that fund will roll over. However, over our LTP budgeting process, we have planned to slowly reduce that surplus to get it to a net zero. So by spending any more money earlier than expected would mean extra money needed later on for the Melbourne Community Board.
And I suppose that since I've been back, I've sort of met with around about 12 people and spent about 20 hours in community engagement. And their real concern, and I'm saying this in a very nice manner, is that given the fact that there's no public consultation on this year's annual plan and that council are going to engage and inform, the worry that I'm picking up from the people that are communicating with me is that this 100,000 will just be used to reimburse the council, which is also already taking over 50% of the targeted rate for services. And I won't make any comment on whether we get value for money for the services, but it just seems that from my limited experience, that a board like this shouldn't have to pay more than 50,000 back of the envelope figures for council services. And the CEO did previously attempt to engage, but it didn't go anywhere for a variety of reasons which aren't relevant, into some sort of service agreement, because in a very nice way, at a global level, I'm not too sure whether we're getting value for money for that 0.4%.
Is there a quick answer to that? Because I think Lydia may have some comment on some of those questions. Lydia?
Look, correct me if I'm wrong in this process, but I think that what you might be able to do is, and this is looking around the LTP, so we had budgeted out the extra funds which had accumulated over quite a number of years, so that $100,000. I think if you were wanting to repurpose some of that funding, it would probably look like an LTP submission from the MCB to repurpose the funding, but recognizing at that other end that targeted rate would change at the other end for the people of the community. So it was to effectively use that money.
Alison,
If that-
you like further comment?
I was just going to, to some extent, expand on what Thomas has said, but also just on Lydia's comment as well. So can I suggest for the February, for the next meeting, that we'll put in a summary around what the purpose of this and how it will work through as it rolls through to year end, but also to Lydia's point, and I think as part of the broader Selwyn District Council long-term plan, we made a commitment to review our rates as well. And I think it's just worth noting that. But for the February meeting, what we'll work with Thomas and Sarah is summarise what the year end position will look like and how those monies are worked through into the next year, which then allows us just to give this group a fulsome review of what happens.
Thank you. Because I suppose from my point of view, given the fact that there's no public consultation on the annual plan, and I won't make any comment on the engage and inform, but putting it through to the long-term plan seems like kicking it for touch. So it would be helpful to have some clarity, especially on the services that are being provided at the February meeting. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, thank you. Kelvin?
Can I just clarify, your attachment 1, does that include the 25-26 budget statement as well, or is that in attachment 2?
The papers that have been included are the draft 25-26 budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of, so would you like me to ask questions about that now?
If you wish, if they're prepared to.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so 25-26 budget, thank you for that, putting that together, it makes it clear. There has been some, it says draft at the top, which is good. My understanding was that we had we're able to, in part of the annual plan process was that we were going to be able to comment on this and agree it with council. So I do note some of the numbers have changed, like the income's gone up because we've got more ratepayers, basically. The council support charge has gone down from 110 to 109, which I'm not sure if that means we're employing less staff or we're actually got the percentage has gone down, but we perhaps need to review that. But I think I've made some assessments of it and there is some quite major changes in the numbers. And instead of running at a 29,000 deficit over the year, we're only running at 13. So I think the board needs to get together separately and we'll review those and come back to you before the next meeting. That would be really helpful if we could do that.
Yeah, this was essentially just to give it to the board to essentially do that and discuss and then come back to us with any adjustments that you feel and then agree to them.
Sian?
My only question would be there's a sentence at the end of the draft budget which says that you guys will work with us to get our budget aligned. When do we think that will happen-ish?
We can work with you when it suits to go through this budget, but ideally in the next month would be the ideal time frame, if that's possible.
Thank you.
John?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Kelvin.
awesome. And just to clarify, that is why it's really important to get the 31st of December information and the 31st of Jan as soon as we can, so that we can actually see where our current budget's going, so that we can incorporate it in the new budget. That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, just a final comment of the expenditure transaction breakdown, the line number 6. It just seems to me, again, and I don't have a financial background, that we've got the general classification advertising expenses, July 2024, and then we've got an amount of money as the community board levy. And I'm just wondering whether at some stage there may be a bit of a review of the actual wording and of the entries that are put in so that they're more aligned.
All right, are there any further questions? If not, I'm prepared to put the motion of the acceptance of the financial report. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Public forum, sorry?
Bruce, point of order. There is a second part to it, which I think is Appendix 2, which is your explanation of the 0.42%. I thought it was a second part.
I thought we had basically discussed all that. No, Sarah, do you want to make a comment or not?
I've got a further question
Hey.
I'd like to ask.
Okay, all
on
right
that
then.
point, But yeah. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate you putting together the reasoning for the 0.42% in terms of the number of 110 is 0.42% of 26 million. I can't actually see the number there, but over $26 million salary, and you've explained the groups of people. This has been explained a number of times to us, and we can understand that it's 0.42% of 26 million of those groups that do support the community board and the rest of council. So my real remaining question now is 0.42%. How is that calculated? Because should it be 0.32%? Should it be 0.52%? Where does that 0.42 come from? That's the real calculation we need, because who's covering the other 100.5%? No, 99.5%. Not very good at figures when I don't calculate them. So it's just to understand where what we're really looking for is where that 0.42% comes from, that calculation. We understand it's a percentage of the overall support groups of the council, which is awesome. So that we understand that. Obviously I'm talking for myself, but on behalf of the board. But yeah, it's just where that 0.42% and how that's calculated, and how we could maybe make it more efficient for council or more efficient for the community board and our community.
Sarah.
Okay, thanks, Kelvin. Firstly, I want to point out that the charge is not just staff cost. So I think it's been mentioned, and you mentioned before, that it's based on the salary, but it's not just the salary of the staff that make up support charges. So as given in the example here, for example, in the digital department, it's licenses, subscriptions, IT network costs, equipment maintenance, hardware, and finance department's audit fees, valuation, bank fees, printing, postage, as well as salary costs. So the 26 million, just to be really clear, is not salary cost. It's salary makes up a portion of it, but it is not 26 million salary. It's all the costs that go into a support department that you are charged. The 0.42% is historic. You were charged 0.42 in the previous year. The person that does the calculation is Thomas here, but it's basically based on how much of an FTE of the overall council expenses that Malvern Community Board are deemed to use. Yeah.
Just to add to that as well. So I mean, 0.42, it's an apportioned number, as Sarah alludes to. We've got a number of different departments across council, whether it be marketing, digital, whoever it may be. The level of effort and the accumulation of all those costs, that's how the numbers arrived at. So it's not salary, it's an apportionment of the broader Selwyn District Council cost. Now that 0.42, I'll look to Thomas to get detail around how we land at 0.42, but I'm going to take a stab here to say it's based on the volume of time and effort that goes into this group, and that's how it's landed at 0.42. Is that fair, Thomas? Do you want to add anything else to that? No.
You want another comment, John? Just a quick comment.
A quick one, of course. I fully understand that it's an apportionment, but if I take a step back and take an overview, the Malvern Community Board is a very small entity within the whole council, And with my limited experience, not financial, within several local governments, it seems to me that a board this size would, on the back of an envelope, warrant a $50,000 service charge. And it just seems to me that I can see where you come from, where you're taking it, but without being too critical, there's no great in-depth reporting provided to the board, so there's not too much time and effort. And I'm just wondering whether we could take a fresh look and say, given the services that are actually provided to the board, do we still want to stay at 0.42, or do we want to go up or down and have some evidentiary basis?
Alison?
I'm happy to take a look at it. It's a fairly large piece of work, as you will appreciate. Myself, Sarah and Thomas will have a discussion post this meeting to see what we could include. And it might be at a very high level in the February meeting, just to say, look, here are our overall Malvern District Council costs. Here are the number of meetings that we attend, the amount of reporting that we do, IT equipment that we provide, etc., which then allows you to get a little bit more clarity around how we calculate that 0.42. It's not going to be 100% there for the next meeting, but it will go some way to provide that broader illustration.
Look, I would appreciate the effort being made, and I'm not asking for it to be to the nth degree. It's just to, like, for example, I would imagine that the setup for this to be audio visualed, in my view, shouldn't be charged to the community board. It should be part of an overall council charge for community. And I know there are things that can be discussed, but at the moment with just a bland 0.42, we don't have an opportunity to have that discussion.
Yeah, look, I'm going to halt the discussion here because this is a curly one that we've been concentrating on for quite some time. And I think now, though, that the difference is that we know we have got a community board. We are there by the representation committee. We are entitled to be there. I think up until now, perhaps it was and by many, they were saying, well, we won't worry too much about the community board because they're not going to be there anyway. Well, we've actually proved that we are wanted. And I think now it's a totally different scenario. I think that as long as we're being charged fair and equitable, but that's the question that we are basically asking. So, Alison, that's what I'm saying. And I agree with your submission. Once you've got an opportunity, there may be areas that we can save on. And that's something that we would appreciate.
Yep.
I concur.
I think that sums it up. Right. Thank you. You're most welcome to stay on, but that's entirely up to you. Okay, we shall move on to the public forum. Now, we haven't got anybody who has intimated they want to speak at the public forum, but what I am going to do as part of the public forum is that, and I was going to do this at the start of the meeting, but that is to congratulate David Kent on being awarded a member of the Order of New Zealand for community services, not only to the community. I did so at the meeting at Kirwi the other night, but that was, but I want to do it officially at a community board meeting so that it's minuted accordingly. We do congratulate him for the effort that he's done, not only to the community, but also to the hard of hearing. And that's something that as I said at the Kirwi meeting, we've got lots of people in our community who deserve credits, but it's really up to us as individuals to nominate these people. So I would just like to record it in the minutes on behalf of the community board, the Malvern Community Board. We congratulate David Kennett on being appointed a member of the Order of New Zealand. Right, shall we move? Sorry, Harvey. Now, in what respect to?
In respect of the motion that we got through as Residents Association. has our plan, but we believe it's necessary for a target curve. So is that,
Sorry, Harvey, I didn't hear that.
how the council intend to charge the sewage,
Oh, yes.
that part of the minutes.
Yes, so there was some, but again, I don't think that's been answered. So it's just something I believe that once the CEO's report has been given, if we haven't followed up for the things that we've asked, we will then ask the questions again. So I think that would be a fair comment.
One other question, Rob, opening.
Yes.
That's been addressed.
Well, we might like to bring that up under your report, Sean, I think at this stage. I just don't want to interfere with, because I'm quite sure we'll cover these things, Harvey. I really am, but they'll come up under the appropriate headings. Confirmation of minutes. They are before you. Is somebody prepared that I sign those as a true and accurate record? On page 11, Sean's moved. Seconder, Kelvin, thank you. Is there any discussion on any of these minutes, any amendments? Well,
Sorry,
yeah,
do we need to review the actions?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
as long as you've got the actions there with it.
You want to go down them one by one?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
if you want to.
Board IT equipment use and charges will be addressed in manager's report. So that has, I believe, been addressed at the end of the current minutes, so we can perhaps talk about that then. Sorry, the current agenda. ANZAC Memorial Resource consenting invoice. I believe that's been sorted for Kerwee. Sharon has been able to deal with that.
Yes,
Harata Community Contacts.
yes.
Yep, I believe that's been.
Well, as I believe
sorted out.
that Sharon again has been in contact with that person. Yep.
Oh, I can verify that, Vanessa's receiving emails from.
Could you talk into the thing, please, Sharon?
I can confirm that Vanessa Murray is receiving emails from Go Horata.
Thank you.
Area plan updates, confirmed workshop run by staff today, so that's all sorted.
Yep.
Sheffield Pool Hearings Panel.
Yes,
Yep. So that's, Charlotte's been appointed to the
yes,
panel.
and that's been
confirmed that
acknowledged.
That's all good,
That's
and
been
that's
acknowledged.
underway, and we're out for consultation at the moment. IOD training for myself, I can
Yes.
confirm that I have been reimbursed and I have paid the invoice.
Well, you haven't sent any bills yet. Have you sent a bill in? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's all been sorted.
Oh, it has, right,
Yes, yeah,
okay.
that's all been sorted.
Right.
And I'm underway at the moment. Darfield Residents Association donation, board agreed to donate money for the purchase of gifts in Darfield. That has been completed,
Yes,
I
that's
believe,
been
and
done.
that's all been sorted.
Right.
So.
So there's nothing there
I
that
don't
hasn't
believe
been
there is outstanding.
addressed, as I understand. Happy? Right. Okay, so as part of I'll put the motion that we accept the minutes. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Meeting minutes Monday. What's that one? Page 17. Oh, yeah, that's right. We've done that. Okay, we'll now move on to actions. We've done correspondence. There's no correspondence to raise. Okay. Move on to reports. The reports are in front of you. I'll move my report. Is there somebody there to second it? Kelvin, thank you. Is there any comment? The only comment I would make is the fact that we've got nine months left of this board, and we've got some things coming up of great importance. We've got the program that has been circulated to you, suggested from Steve and myself. I want to have meetings prior to next February meeting where we can put our own proposals forward, and we want some constructive finalities for us to work through for the next 9 months. The I really don't want to make any comment on what I've attended, what I haven't. I would, though, congratulate Sian and the Darfield community for the way the grotto went. I thought it was excellent. I didn't get up there for all of it, but I did enjoy the Saturday morning. I didn't get as many people sitting on my knee though as I'd hoped, but never mind. It was a great thing. It really was, and I do congratulate you and for the effort. And I was happy to come up and help you dismantle. It's a thing that we don't want to let go. It's a thing that we must encourage. So I'll move my report. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carry. Sian.
Thank you, Bruce. I will move my report as read.
Somebody second it? Kelvin,
Open
for discussion.
So I will touch on high school prize giving. I won't get into too much detail, but I have noted in my report who the recipients were of the Malvern Community Board prizes. So that was awesome to see 4 people receive an award on the board. In regards to the jail, so thank you very much, DRA, for all of your support throughout the whole process of setting up and pulling down. My apologies for not being available to help get all the decorations down, but I was quite unwell. Thank you, Bruce, for filling in. In regards to getting the jail back to scratch, I would like to have a yarn with John, because I believe you were donated, or the board was donated, some memorabilia that may need to go into the jail. So I'd like to have a conversation with you and maybe get you down there so we can plan where things are going to go and how we're going to set it up going forward. I would like to have the jail open as soon as possible. I do not want to set it up on my own. I would like it to be an effort from the board if we're going to take some ownership alongside the DRA in regards to managing and maintaining that asset. So looking forward to getting that done. I also had a conversation with a lady named Catherine Rose. Now her father was the project leader for having the jail relocated to its current location. He has passed away recently, and her and I have had conversations about the possibility of the board supporting getting a memorial seat put in place at the jail to recognise her father, which I think is a great idea, and I believe that's something we can discuss offline as a team. But yeah, if we can sort of agree on a date to have the jail open to the public, and then I can work alongside the DRA and potentially any other community members that might like the responsibility of opening and closing the jail on a schedule. Did you want to ask me questions on that before I carry on, John?
Yes.
Yeah, no, look, that's fine. I've sort of had some conversation with Sarah, the historical librarian, and I'm quite happy to arrange for yourself, myself, Harvey, and anyone else, and Sarah to have a discussion, because from what she said towards the end of last year, there's some money in her budget that can be used for signage and the QR codes and what have you. The second point, just a little digression, but very brief, Mr. Chair, is that do we have any agreement on who should have the responsibility for opening the jail every morning and closing the jail at night?
So that was me, but I'm no longer a Darfield resident. So that needs to change, which is why we need to have a conversation offline to come up with that agreement. But I believe that it's been stated in email that the responsibility of the day-to-day will be on the community and the board if we agree to that.
Yeah, but this is something we can take up with the Darfield Residents Association as well. So, yeah.
Great. And sorry, just a couple of things that I didn't get onto my report. Excuse me for a minute. Prize giving. So I attended the Sheffield Town Hall that Lydia instigated in regards to the current situation with the Sheffield pool. And I didn't make any comment apart from the fact that I can't advise on that as I'm on the hearings panel. So thank you, Lydia, for organising that. I think it was really good to engage with the community and potentially the working group prior to everything kicking off with that. So it was awesome. I did not attend the WLE, and I attended the White Cliffs Residents Group meeting on the 16th of December. So that was good to connect with the residents of White Cliffs. That's all from me.
Okay, anything further? I will move the report. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Now, John, we haven't got your report down, but taking it in order, you are part of, it's on the agenda, so do you want to move your report now?
Yeah.
No, yours will come because yours is a verbal one. Yeah, it's a verbal, but John has been, yeah, I know, but I say he's been missed off the agenda. So I'm taking him now. Okay, seeing it because it's in our agenda. John, would you like to move your report?
I'll move my report be received for information.
Seconder? Thank you, Shan. Open for discussion. John?
The only 2 points that I'd like to raise is the fact that the Darfield Residents Association have been quite clear in their advocacy for CCTV or whatever coverage in the sport and recreation area. Unfortunately, they didn't make it into the long-term plan.
Yep.
And I do think it's an issue that remains live, and it's of major concern given the damage level. And I know that the community patrol tries to give support. So we'd just like to say, let's not let that one drop off. And then anticipating a little bit, the flooding in Springfield.
Yes.
That my understanding is that there's a report coming to the February meeting of the board, and I'd just like to, without being offensive, hope that that report is more than just a few.
No, I don't think, I'm not sure that it's going to come to the February meeting because we're at the stage looking at Murray's running the first meeting, of which again Lydia has been invited to now, that it's going to be in March sometime. That's the time that the council, along with ECAN, have got something positive, hopefully, to tell us. So at this stage, while we were looking at originally having a meeting in February, that just has not been possible. So as I understand, March is the first that we'll have a bit of a get together.
Okay, and I suppose all I'm saying is that it would be nice to have a report with some substance.
Oh, you know, without any question, and that's to be fair, John, that's why it has been delayed. I think that because we're very concerned that we want something that is going to be positive rather than perhaps a maybe. So that's the way I look at it there. Yeah, I think I had some other things here. Oh, you've covered it anyway. The CTV coverage, I agree with that. I agree with you flooding in Darfield as well. And I think, again, it'll be interesting to see once, Alison, we get the report of the 100,000 that's sitting there as an accumulated fund, who actually owns it, whether we can, because this is where I can see that we could contribute back to our district. It's the district money, and we would analyse some of these things. And if it's up to the board and consideration, it's something that we may be able to assist our communities in. Any further questions? Sian?
Just in relation to the flooding in that location in Darfield. So obviously that's been a problem for years and years and years. And
Yeah.
I think it falls under Waka Kotahi for responsibility. I just wanted to check with Councillor Glidden. What could we do in relation to this? Could we send an email to Waka Kotahi? Is this something that the council is currently or has been engaged with Waka Kotahi to resolve at all?
I don't know the avenues that have been taken in investigating the flooding there. It has been for a number of years. I guess comical flooding or non-working stormwater drain. I would suggest that potentially, because I see that the DRA have been working on that. So I guess it's a conversation with the DRA of what avenue they've taken to contact. Oh, okay. Cool. Well, let's contact NZTA and bring it up with them directly.
Is this potentially something, I mean, it would be good if DRA sent their own email through to Wakakotahi, and then of course the board. Is this something that you might be able to take back to council to support?
I think that the discussion needs to happen straight with NZTA. It is their jurisdiction.
No, I understand, just maybe a supportive correspondence from the council stating that this is an issue, just to back things up, because I've sent multiple snaps and solves of that issue, which obviously goes to Wakakotahi.
And what was the outcome of that?
Resolved.
Oh, cool. Can you send the snaps and solves to me and I'll advocate to NZTA?
So you're quite happy for DRA to put the people, they are totally responsible for that.
Yes, absolutely.
No, yeah, it's a state highway. It's their responsibility. So,
John?
Yeah, it seems to me that because this morning, and I know there was heavy rain, that over half the road was flooded as you come around that corner into there. There was also flooding in Bray Street at the corner of Telegraph Road. And then there was also flooding down by the Recreation Centre Reserve, whereby the caravan fresh water. So if I could be granted the liberty, I didn't have time this morning for various reasons, I'll put together a 1-page of some photographs that are annotated and email it through to governance and Lydia and the rest of the board, just to show that this is what it was like at 10 o'clock this morning.
But I think, do we want to be careful, because Darfield's is not the only, you get a complete downfall of rain. And while we've got to put up with it, it's certainly, I know I've got areas around here exactly the same. And I know you had a lot more rain than we did last night, because I had a report from a person up there who measured 25 mils in half an hour. Well, so it's just something, we just want to be careful, that's all right. We don't create something that we really can't control. Sian?
Sorry, I just wanted to correct my previous statement. So it's not set to resolve, it's set to view, and it was created on the 14th of March 2023. So, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
John, the only other question I'd ask you as part of your report was the monthly meetings. We have set them now that we will be starting earlier. I've had no discussion from the board on it to raise. I don't think you have had either. So are you happy with that arrangement? We would still stay at Darfield and our meeting days would be on exactly the same, but we would be starting the meetings earlier. And any other time we would come here to West Melton. So are you happy with that?
Happy with that personally.
Okay. So as long as we clarify that. Okay, if there's nothing further on John's report, I will put it. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Kelvin.
Sorry, I apologise for only doing a verbal report this month. So very quickly, this has been November and December, as I mentioned before. So numerous and many things happening, so I won't bore you with going through everything. But I would just like to mention again, Christmas in Darfield, Santa Claus, the help and support of the DRA and community, and also particularly Sian from the community board. And for the new Santa Claus, if anybody didn't know, but we did have Bruce helping us out on Saturday too. So thank you, Bruce. And the new Santa Claus, whoever he may be, let's not name him. Finance, I've got no further comment on because we've been through all that. I've got one thing with sister cities that I'd like to bring up because there's some important decisions to be made by the board. So this is a visit that is being coordinated in June, July this year for a trip to China and then Japan by sister cities. The Japanese part of it, which is Yubitsu, that's a sister city arrangement direct with Malvern Community Board. So Malvern Community Board needs to discuss, one, who's going. Two, we need to put a person forward to go on the committee that agrees who does go. And also it is the 25th anniversary of that arrangement. So that we do need to be really focused on that visit in June. I've got dates and everything, which I can pass over. Well, I'm sure Teresa's aware of them actually. There is an opportunity for community members, as usual, to go onto this trip. And the applications will be open on the 31st of January and close on the 3rd of March. So we've got that's all in hand, being advertised, etc. We've organised that. There is a contribution to one travel and some accommodation cost with both trips. So you can do one, both, or neither, I suppose. If you did both, the very, very approximate cost is $7,000 per person. That's flights and some accommodation in China. And if you were just to do Yubitsu, that would be something like $3,500. And that's just covering accommodation and things that are not covered in Yubitsu. So we need to provide sit together. This is probably before the next meeting and decide who from the community board will sit on the committee to agree who goes. Depends how many applications we get, of course. And also the community board needs to organise and arrange some presents when we do arrange, particularly in Yubitsu, because they're really important. If we've got some examples of what Yubitsu brought to us last year, and they're quite significant. They're not, we can't ignore them. We've actually
Yeah, but then we just give them presents while we're here as well.
Yeah, but we have, it would be assumed that we should respond in a similar way, like if there are plaques and stuff on the, because it's the 25th anniversary of this arrangement. So, so that's just something the board to be aware of, and we can discuss it at our next interim meeting. I'd just also like to highlight the consultations that are currently underway that we need to be very conscious of and involved with. First one is Sheffield Pool out at the moment. The next one is local water done well. Really, really important to get that right. And the area plans, of course, which we're talking about later. We've also got engagement on the annual plan, as we know. And we've got some projects, as Bruce mentioned, with the community board. We've got, it's actually 8 months left because we've already wasted a month. January's gone. And I'd like to welcome Lydia back to the community board, and I'd like to thank Bob for all his hard work over the last 9 months. Thank you.
You'll move your report?
Yeah, I'll move my report.
Second up. Thank you, Sian. It's open for discussion. Any further discussion on it? John?
Mr. Chair, I was wondering whether we could have a bit of a formal report back from the Sister City Committee to this board. Just that I know Calvin's done a great job of updating us,
Yes, yeah.
but just so that there's something formal in the minutes.
You'll be happy with that, Calvin?
Yep, yeah. I'll get that organised.
Yeah, just at your convenience.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right. Phil's not here yet, so we'll adjourn that. Board member Berry, we've already got that down here. Lydia, a verbal report. Okay, your way, Haver. All the best, and many thanks for coming.
I'll apologise for not having my reporter. I did email it to board members ahead of time. And I guess thanks for having me back. Sorry, I'll start again so it's all recorded then. Hey? I apologise for not having my board report in on time. I didn't actually realise that I was back on the board, so that was a nice surprise. But thank you for, thanks. Thank you for having me back. I have circulated my report to members so they can view before today. I guess I pretty much take it as read. And just note maybe some changes around the high school scholarships. And so we used to only have 2 scholarships available for Darfield High School from Selwyn District Council. And so this year there was 3, but as we had big changes to our structure around funding, we were able to choose 3 for Darfield High School. And I think it's really important to note the caliber of the youth coming out of the school is quite incredible, really. I was quite blown away, and especially being a student from Darfield High School myself, I guess I particularly enjoy going and interviewing the students and giving the awards out to them. The rural recycling trial is something that I was pretty excited about, to finally get something across the line, and in the way that we wanted it to happen too. So just to update you on that, we're just waiting to hear back from Kiwi Rail around what the lease looks like, but the container is being constructed now. We will have to apply for a resource consent to operate that. So things are in progress, and I think middle of the year we could probably see that operational.
Excellent.
And yeah, council committee appointments have obviously changed, and you were given those updates at the end of last year. And there's just a few things that are happening at the moment. So we have hearings for the local alcohol policy on the 4th of February, and just a few community issues noted under other, and some photos attached. But I did attach the consultation calendar that I thought might be good for members to be across if you haven't seen that. And I'm actually looking forward to, and this is something that was previously raised around the local government commission determination on the representation review. So I guess that's playing in the back of my mind too, around what their decision is going to be out of that. And I'd like to thank Sean and the DRA for the work they do at the Grotto. It's so great. And I know that my daughter loves it, and we love getting our annual Christmas picture there. And as Sean noted, the Sheffield Pool Working Group was established in early December, and they're making some very quick progress, and there should be a media release from them at the start of next week.
Would you like to move?
I'll move my report.
Thank you. Second of Lydia. John, thank you. Open for discussion. Sian.
I was too really excited to see the update about the recycling happening in Darfield. I guess just one question, because it's potentially going to be a question that constituents ask. Will this increase the rates for recycling when this goes ahead? But first of all, congratulations. It's been a couple of years in the process, so well done getting it over the line.
At the moment, it's a trial. And so what we need to see is good uptake from the community around this, because noting it is a trial, we had money aside from that in the...
So the trial will be covered by the council.
We've already had, that was back in 2023,
Correct.
annual plan funding secured for a trial. So that funding is there. There's no direct cost to consumer at this date. The funding is already secured. Going forward, if we look to install that as a permanent fixture, there will probably be discussion around that, and that will look around how, I guess, how it's rated, because for rural ratepayers, we don't pay for that at the moment. And noting that we have a rates review before the next long-term plan.
And I guess the other thing is in relation to the Hururata Domain Pond. So you and I were in communication with council staff at the same time on the same day in regards to this issue. Steve asked me to find someone in the community to rescue the fish, which was done. Has that person, like the one thing that feels outstanding is, has that person been contacted to say, please put the fish back? Because I have only just now found out through your report that the water's actually been reinstated. So are they aware that the fish can be returned? Because I believe she rescued over 100, and they're currently sitting in quarantine tanks on her property.
I don't know what the outcome of that after the pond was refilled is. I think there's probably a conversation that needs to happen if some of the fish are actually carp, which are, if you look at Fish and Game, are a pest species fish. So there potentially needs to be some discussion about what type of fish are in the pond. Yeah, I don't know. I know the community did the working bee, and so potentially she was involved. But yes, I don't know.
So to follow that up, Sian, do you want to follow that up from the board's point of view, or do you want Lydia to follow that up? I mean, what's going to be the easiest, Lydia, for you?
I guess I don't know if somebody can tell me if she's been contacted to tell her to put the fish back. That's all, or what's happening with the
I can
fish.
follow up.
Some update.
Would you follow that up, Lydia? Thank you, thank you. Any further questions? If not, I'll put Lydia's verbal report. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. The Executive Director's report is there for you, starting on page 26. I will move that that we adopt that. Is there a seconder? Thank you. It's open for discussion. Okay, is there any discussion on it?
Mr. Chair.
John?
Yeah. Just from my own personal point of view, I respect the right of the developer to have naming rights, but I wonder whether at a council level, it just seems that looking at a lot of the new subdivisions in Darfield, they're imported names, and without being too contentious, we're getting back to the colonisation era. And I'm just wondering, not quite so far as to say that the name should be bilingual, but
Could
I
I
would
just
like
I'll ask a question here of Alison. While it's in Steve's report, we also have a paper in the hand of Gareth Morgan, which is exactly these names. So it's really Gareth's prerogative, isn't it, for us to either agree or disagree, whereas Steve is mentioning it here. So I'd just like clarification that before we get too bogged down on this particular thing.
I will need to go back and check that. I think you're right, but if you let me go back and check, and I will come back to you on that
Yeah,
one.
well, I think
Yeah.
once we've sort of asked any questions, we can perhaps, subject to Ray's being able to do that, she can put the questions into the appropriate place here. So John, continue if you wish. Sorry, Alison.
Sorry, just looking at point 3, which is on page 32 on diligent, Gareth does note that it's a proposal at this stage. So I will check with him and come back if that's okay.
Yeah, because. Therese? Yes, thank you.
So that is delegated to staff, and so there is a staff report from Gareth where he approved those names.
Yes.
I think Steve summarised it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but then we have the board has the final whether we agree or not, don't we? Basically, I mean, we would agree on their recommendations, but all I'm saying it is, should it be on page 32 under Gareth's heading, or should it be on page 26 under Steve's heading? Pardon?
The board is requested to endorse those.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, but do we agree to Steve's report, or do we need to go to Gareth's report?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Right.
But basically, what I'm saying is, I have no objection, and I'm happy to vote that they be adopted or recommended or endorsed. What I was saying was the bigger order question to me is it seems that we're losing an opportunity within Darfield, given the number of suburbs, to not have some thought given to having a bit of local historical, preferably from a bicultural perspective, put into the subdivision names rather than overseas names.
Yeah, Sian.
As far as I'm aware, there is no hapu for the Malvern ward. You've got Taumatu, which is out Ellesmere Ways, and you've got Runanga, which is out Tuahiwi Way, I think. But as for Malvern, I don't believe there is a specific hapu attached that would advise on those sorts of names. Is there, am I wrong? Oh, Taumatu. But they're still on the other side. They're not part of, like, their marae is out in Ellesmere. So I think, although I understand where you're coming from, we do have representation on council from iwi. Are they feeding back on the names of the roads? Do they have a problem with that? Because if there are people sitting in council making those suggestions for certain things and it's not being made for these street names, is that our problem to decide whether it's appropriate or not?
I wasn't going to be as bold as to sort of tell the tangata whenua what they should or shouldn't be doing. What I was just raising was that Malvern has a history, and it just seems that in the subdivisions that I live in and the new subdivisions coming forward, the names seem to be imported from overseas.
Yep.
And I was just wondering if we somewhere could raise the issue and have the conversation that maybe retention of a bit of a
Yeah,
local
I think this has
identity.
already been brought up on another occasion, and I agree somewhat with you, John, to the extent this is a totally different developer as to what we've been dealing with Preston Downs and the one over here. And I must admit, even the one over here, he's named a lot of names there, which we approved, but weren't really relevant to actually our community. But it was when you looked at it, because he brought in the mountain scenes and all those sort of things. This, in my opinion, is a totally different matter. But I think I don't have any objection, but I do believe that our developers should look after the history as well. Okay, anything further? Any other comments in Steve's report here? I was hoping that Phil might have been here, because in particularly to the supply of the lake in Horata. Do you want to make any comment, Lydia? Would you can do that, please, love?
I think Steve's covered most of this off.
Oh, he has, yeah, but I mean, is there?
It was really nice that there was a really quick turnaround to have the water
Correct.
reinstated to the
Correct.
lake, and the particular staff member, Ben, did
Yeah.
a fantastic job in sourcing the water.
Yeah,
and
all I
coming
was
up with
going
a
to get was
solution.
whether Phil, because he's the man up there, whether there was any, I think they want to be congratulated for, for what they've done and the actions they have taken. And that's all. I just thought Phil might look like to make a comment.
Yeah, I think
But that's not going to happen.
it was a great solution, and everyone was happy at the end of the day, which is great.
Right, so, if we go back now to the,
Steve's report.
yes, if you wish
Yeah.
to. Well, we
Steve,
haven't got it all. You're talking on, Steve, we've still got the other part of it is on page 30 and 31. Is there something there?
you're still going. Okay,
So we haven't,
I'm towards the end. Yeah, that's
yeah.
fine.
So, okay, so carry on, Kelvin.
Yeah, on page 31, Steve's responding to a email from Kerwee
Yes,
about their water supply and the recent firefighting efforts. And it's good to see you're here. Have you received something from Steve?
yeah.
So that seems to be, are you content with the response? Awesome. That's
Well, I
good to
think it was
see.
an excellent response, to be
Yeah.
fair.
Mm.
It just means that you haven't overdone your quota. But I think the thing is, it's been clarified here.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
I think it's really good that the community in Kerwee and
Yes,
other
it
parts
is.
of Malvern are asking the right questions and councillor
And it's been answered.
supporting them,
Yeah.
which is good. The only disappointment I have with that is that there's over 70 pages in our agenda of the New Zealand Fire Service Firefighting Water Supplies Code of Practice.
Yes,
I obviously haven't printed it out because my printer can't afford to do that. But it's just disappointing that we've got a large document there. We could just put it as an appendix and a reference rather than actually including the document in our agenda.
I think it was interesting reading through that, and while we are taking it as part of Steve's report, the point is, it was interesting reading through that. Now, I haven't read it per se, but I did. One of the things that I mentioned this to John on the phone, the interesting fact of the amount of water that is wasted by how they physically get it into the tank. If you're sucking water out of a drain and it's going 70 metres, you're actually wasting 80% of the energy to actually get that water into the truck. Whereas if you bring it down out of the sky or out of a tank, you're wasting nothing. So I think it was some interesting comments in here, and I agree. I wasn't too worried about their
perhaps I
code
could
of
just
conduct.
clarify that. It's very useful for
Yeah.
people who read a lot, Bruce, of hard copy, to have a hard copy. Somebody like me, I've seen it before and wouldn't necessarily use it in that
No,
form.
that's
So,
right.
so
Right.
maybe we could just have a copy available and
Yeah, right.
save some paper.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's okay for you guys. I'm the only one that's wasting the paper anyway, because I get a printed copy. Okay, is there any further discussion on it? I will put the motion that Steve's report be received. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right, done that, so we've done the attachments.
Mr. Chair. The item 5, managing risks and exploring private device use in our organisation, is that appropriate to look at?
Sorry, which one? Sorry, John.
The use of IT equipment by the council.
Oh, yeah, but what? No, but we haven't got to that yet.
Oh, right.
That's on page, what, 113 or something, isn't it? Hey? Yeah. Sorry, dear.
It's talked to the back of Steve's report as well.
But that's not part of, was that part of Steve's report?
Steve's report.
I beg your pardon. What page was that referred to? Management. Yeah, but what's the number of the page?
30.
Page 113.
I beg your pardon. Right, sorry, John. Right, I'm with you now.
Yeah, I was just wondering that, looking at page 113 of the agenda, the report from the executive director, is it appropriate now to move that be received and then discussed?
Yeah, but I thought we're going to do that anyway, aren't we? Sorry, yes? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I thought. Yeah, no, we've already got somebody in the room who's going to discuss that. Yeah, that's right at the end.
Oh, okay.
So all I'm saying is, I thought you were bringing up something that was in Steve's report. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. We've already got that. So, Phil, before we move on to that particular item, do you want to give your verbal report?
As regards to Malvern community in the last month or two, I've been flat out busy shifting business. Sorry, so I haven't actually done much as in the way of community stuff other than my usual Horrorata stuff, so nothing really to report.
Is there any questions on any of the reports that you've seen here that you've got on? Like the one comment I did make was Steve's report, and I marked it for you to say I've already congratulated him in regards to the refilling of the lake, etc. up there. I mean, it was obviously attended to, and I just thought you might want to make a comment.
My only comment would be that we started the process of fixing that lake 6 months ago, and it was very surprising how a little bit of Facebook negativity towards council got action, whereas we've been waiting on that process for over 6 months. So yeah, that was probably my only comment on that.
Thank you. You want to move your report or what you had?
Yep, I'll move my report.
Seconder? John, is there any discussion on it?
Yeah, I was just wondering whether it was appropriate to ask Phil about the comment on the water supply in Horrorata, whether you can add anything. Seems to be off and on a lot.
Yeah, the main issue with the water going on and off is the fact that it seems to go off as soon as it gets tepid water, which we understand, but then it takes a long time to come back on. So the Selwyn is running clear and the water is still turned off for 2 or 3 days. Theoretically, if the Selwyn's running clear, it should be clear to run the system. So which is the last 2 times it's gone off for 4 days and 5 days instead of, it used to be about 3 it was switched off for, but it seems to be very slow to be coming back on again. Most people don't have storage of 3,000 litres, so they suffer within 1 or 2 days, but they'll slowly have to do that. But for personally, out of my example, I had lost all my water, 40,000 litres, and when the water's shut off, you can't get anything back. So and for waiting 5 days with stock, trying to get water back on. And I'm not a guy to ring the council to come out and take my restrictor out and let water on, but then they can't even do that if there's no water on. So,
Sean?
Yeah, I've also had an email from a member of the public, concerns around the notifications in regards to conserve or water off. So I think the request is that there is clearer definitions and understanding of what's happening in the community when the water notices go out. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any further, Lydia?
I think Phil should note that Water Services are coming to talk to your Gohorada meeting, which is, I think, a good thing for the community as well, to have some more engagement around that. And, you know, this is something that we've discussed many times in the fact that there isn't a lot of understanding for some people that move out to rural communities around what restricted water supply looks like and how many 1,000 litres you need to hold on site. So there's a big picture around, and noting that the new reservoir is online as well, which is good, and there is work to be done around the joining of the schemes to allow for more continuity, but you guys will get more of an update at your meeting next week.
So
Any
just on,
comment, Phil?
yeah, just on that. So at the moment, even though the big tank's there, when they shut the water off, they shut the water off. So the tank's not hooked up. So you're still not getting any water.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I will put the verbal report, which has been moved and seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. I'll now move on to, if you go to page 116, could I welcome Jodie to the meeting? And no doubt she'll explain the items on here, and I'll ask for questions after she's finished that. Jodie, welcome.
Thank you for having me along. Really quickly, I guess I can summarize oh, sorry. Was that better? Can you hear? Okay. Cool. To summarize really quickly the report essentially summarizes what options there are for members of a local authority, including its community board, around, I guess, use of ICT equipment. The determination essentially allows 2 situations where allowances are payable, and that's where a local authority asks that members use their own personal devices, or where they issue issue devices to members. So the paper just goes into a bit of detail and potentially clarifies what is payable to members for ICT in those 2 situations where you are asked by the local authority to use your personal devices, or whether you are issued ICT devices. And the paper is really a response to some questions that we had around what is payable and what is best practice in terms of managing privacy considerations, as well as requests for information to Logoma as well. So to assist members, this also provides information which may help members decide which option they wish to choose.
Right, so we'll open it for questions. Jodie, you're quite happy at this stage that any questions that you can be answered to?
Sure.
Okay, John?
So is the council's preference that we use council equipment like the council laptop and council telephones, and then becomes the issue whether we may be able to choose not to.
The count, going with where council issues ICT equipment, there is better control and management of privacy considerations and requests for information, especially under Lagoima. So they're more easily managed, and they come with inbuilt support because they're issued by the council, and therefore have, you know, the apps and security and the firewalls and things built in. If a member wants to use their own personal devices, then there'll have to be some working with IT to make sure that those appropriate firewalls are on that person's personal computer, which may take some time, may require additional steps, logins, I'm not quite sure. So definitely using STC issued equipment makes things more secure from the council perspective in terms of managing those considerations.
Alison?
Yeah, to be honest, I was just really going to say almost similar to what Jodie said, but noting Steve's report, and on page 30, it did talk to some of the risks around if you were to use your own device versus one that was issued. And I think as Jodie alludes to, I mean, you've got security, uniformity, not to mention Lagoima considerations and all these things as well. And also just making sure that the apps that you're using, whether it be multi-factor authentication and all these things, are up to date. Which if it's an SDC device, that'll be rolled out. If it's your own personal iPhone, then it's up to you to keep that up to date to make sure it's fit for purpose.
John?
So for simplicity for an old guy like me, I'm quite comfortable with using the council's computer and logging in and doing that. The issue for me personally is that with my own telephone, I'm quite happy to, or my preference would be to use that to receive calls and make calls. Does that cause a major issue in relation to the Lagoima and privacy and things like that?
It would probably be more sort of data thing, like emails and things that you'd receive. I'm not quite sure if there's any ability for us to get voicemail. I don't think there's as much concern with phone. I can check with you know phone calls, but I can check to see, because if anything's via Teams, then there's recordings from Teams, so there might be some
I
security.
suppose for simplicity, that I only use the telephone to receive texts and calls, and to send a few texts and calls. I don't access any council things. My degree of computer literacy is like my financial literacy, almost nil. So it just seems to me that if I walk around, although it may be a trendy thing for people to have 2 or 3 phones, at my age, I find enough difficulty coping with one phone. So my preference would be to just have a phone to receive texts and calls, make texts and calls, and not in any way log in and share data and do all these other fancy things.
Sure. Anything to do, like if you receive texts related to council business and those things particularly are loggable as well, any text conversations that you might have with people in the course of your business. So it probably would be safer to have an STC phone for that reason, for those records.
Alison?
There is one other option. I mean, just sort of looking, notwithstanding the fact that Lydia and I both got 2 phones sitting in front of us, there is another option that you can have with one phone, but you can have a dual SIM card option in it. So from a Lagoima standpoint, as Jodie alludes to, if there's text and whatnot, and it's easy to be installed, IT, someone can do it for you, but it means that your personal phone is your personal phone, and any works phone will come through on the same handset. So that's another thing we could look at.
Calvin?
Yeah, on the phone front, I've got one phone in front of me. It's dual SIM. And it's got a UK SIM and an NZ SIM, because that's my personal requirement, right? But my council phone is sat in my house, no power, nothing on it. I've diverted all calls to this, without exception. The only thing I'm missing is the odd one text a month that a member of the community sends me, because my council number is on the website. So that's how I personally run it. because I can only handle one piece of equipment, not more. So in those situations, I'm concerned why on our financial reports, we're paying for phones that we're clearly not making full use of. Some of us are using them, some of us aren't. So that's a concern. With the laptops, it's also a concern that this is my personal laptop, this is my personal phone. I have got a council laptop, and the only time I have to use it is when the password gets updated, and it won't update, so I can't access my email on here. I have to go on the council laptop, and sometimes even have to visit council office just to get it working, and then I can come back on this and it all updates with dual authentication, etc. So it all works fine, and all the authentications come through to this phone, not that, not my council phone. So I've got it all working, and I believe I'm complying with the security things. But my laptop is sat there as a wasted resource for the council and for the community, and we as the Malvern Community Board are paying for it. So from what I see out of this documentation you presented to us, is that the council needs to ask us to use our own equipment rather than we have the opportunity not to use it, as in use our own. And I mean, also, it's a simple one there. There's a mention if council asks me to print stuff out, I print stuff. Well, I do print stuff out because I'm not going to drive over to Rolleston to pick it up from council because they print it out for me. And I live very close to Rolleston, by the way, not like some of our members. So, but I didn't print out that New Zealand, that thing. But I know there's some charges in there that we can charge council if we're instructed to by council to use our own equipment and consumables, for example. So where would that cost end up? Is that going to end up coming out of our finances again, or is it going to be in the support cost from council? Because I'd like to just make our finances as simple and easy as possible and at best value for the community. So I'm quite satisfied with what I'm doing at the moment, as long as council is. And I know my final point actually is email. So I am aware that some of our members don't use the council email. Now, that obviously is a Legoima issue, a massive issue for Legoimas. I use my council email for that reason because I can keep it separate, because I know I've got 8 months to go, so I can literally just switch it off. Council will, so that's fine. But other members, that may be more difficult for council to access stuff. So I'm concerned by that, and I don't know how council could improve that. Maybe it's too late for this community board, and maybe it's a future thing that it would have been great if we'd have had this information way back at the beginning in some sort of induction to this community board, so that we'd have known what the decisions we could make to minimise it for our community. So I think that my real comment is, let's make it right for the next community board, because it's going to be there. We know it is. We don't know who's going to be on it, but we know it's going to be. So let's have it right, and let IT and council actually support the community board properly, i.e. providing equipment or not. Some of the more remote people might not need council equipment because it's too hard to maintain driving 125 kilometres to Rolleston. So, but anyway, sorry, that's my comments, and I was lots of questions there, but I think we need to do it right for the future.
Yep. I think that's a good point, Kelvin. It really is a good point. Because, you know, I'm one of the, when I got the 2 things from David Ward, they haven't even been taken out of their satchels. I said you could have it back. He said we don't want it back. So carry on, Alison.
I mean, there was a lot of questions in there, but I'll focus on the first one. So if you're issued with a device, that device cost of said device will flow through the support service charge. If the choice is that you don't want to use said device, that would then be retired from the account, for want of a better choice of words, and that would adjust the support service charge. Probably not dramatically, because the amount is apportioned as we talked to earlier. Whereas if you choose to use your own device, and as Jodie has added on, I think it's on page 116 onwards in Diligent, the allowances, whether it be $400 for the personal computer, that would then flow through to the financials. So it's one of 2 ways. You have the device issued by Selwyn, which we'll be honest, that is probably our preference because of the securities, etc. Or the alternative is we retire said device, you use your own, and there are the amounts that have been set out by the Remuneration Authority.
Okay, thank you. Is any further questions? If not, Jody, John?
Yeah, number 6. The allowance of $500 if you use your own internet service. If I use the council's laptop at home, I may be missing something, but I use my own internet rather than the council's internet. But if there's a way I can use the council's internet from home, that would be a win-win.
Yeah. So finally, that's yours.
Right. I'll take lessons.
What system?
Oh, Spark, that's the other one.
Could you speak into your microphones, please, rather than just across the table?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just making a comment that phone won't work so there's no internet.
Yeah, so there is contention with there not being enough mobile coverage.
Okay, yeah.
I can't pick up Spark
Yeah,
where I am
we've got
either.
that here currently.
Yeah.
Okay, anything further? Any other points? Jody, could I thank you on behalf of the board for doing it, and I'll get a motion just to accept this report. Is somebody prepared to move? John, Phil's going to second it. If there's no further matters on it, again, Jody, thank you for coming. And it's something, though, that the next community board will want to look at, rather than bringing it up at this stage. That's the way I see it. But I do thank you.
Final thing,
Phil?
can we return that equipment if we're not using it? It seems
Yeah, I
pointless
mean,
having it sitting. I've never used mine since the day.
no, I've
phone
never
or
used mine.
computer.
It's still in its packing case.
So if we can return it anyway, at least it's safely in council hands rather than, I think mine's rolling around the truck
So
somewhere.
if we bring that back to Therese, if that's the case at our next board meeting, just bring the stuff and we'll make sure that it goes back to council. Okay? Okay, thanks, Jody.
Sorry, can I just confirm that if a member returns their SDC issued ICT equipment, that they must have apps put onto their devices that will provide the security and monitoring for Lagoima?
Yeah, well, that's already part of this anyway, isn't it?
I think we just need that to be
Yeah.
clear so that people
As I-
understand if they're returning their equipment, you also have to get this other tech put onto your personal
Yeah,
devices.
but that is that's part of your things here.
Yes.
That if you're going to use your own equipment, and that's something I don't approve of either, but never mind. I'm not getting council to know exactly what's going on my phone, because that's personal then to me. But however, if that's a condition, well, that's what the members will have to decide.
So, Mr. Chair, it's the status quo, no change.
No change.
Until October 2025.
There won't be anything until we get a report on how best we can achieve what we're trying to do, which will reflect to our next community board.
It's important to note the determination runs, I think, from around July to July. So the new determination authority will issue more new revised guidance this year, which will relate to the next board.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Right, we'll move on. That completes the agenda, except that we did have two notifications of extraordinary business. Mine is quite simple. The fact is that I'm giving you warning now at this stage that, sorry, after 30 odd years of public service, community service, this is it. As October, I will not be standing for anything in local bodies.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would just personally like to sort of express my gratitude for the service that you've given to the board since the time that I've been on. And continuing through till October, of course.
Okay. Now, John, thank you for that. John, you had a.
I suppose I'd just like to, in full transparency, say that having had a nice break away, I've made the decision that I will go out to the public in October 2025 and let the public decide in the Hawkins subdivision whether they like my style or not. And if they like my style, so be it. If they don't, well, that's also great.
Yeah, that's right. So while I haven't canvassed I haven't canvassed anybody at this stage, I just feel that you people, you just want to remember that if you want to continue, in which I hope that you do in some form of local bodies, that you get your name out there so that you can, start working on to what you want to achieve. And this is important as I say, over the next nine months, as a community board, we have to achieve. It's as simple as that. Okay, now the only thing that I'm going to bring up again is the fact, because the said gentleman wasn't here when I congratulated David officially, to have it minuted on behalf of the community board, while I did it the other night at your community committee, I wanted to do it here because this is going to be minuted, and whereas yours was minuted agreed by your beloved wife, but the point of the matter was, I just wanted to make it officially from the Malvern Community Board to thank you and congratulate you for the honour that has been bestowed on you, David. We certainly appreciate the work that you do along with a lot of other people. And as I said to your committee, really, you were the lucky one, and I was too a few years ago, that we were nominated. But we've got a tremendous amount of people in our district, and Selwyn always seems to be reluctant in putting names forward. But it's something that the community board might want to think about too. We have our own awards, but the point of the matter is, it's nice to be recognised nationally. So, heartiest congratulations to you.
Yeah, we're trying to get around all of it. And it's quite a shock to me. Not just for us, but the people with disabilities that stand, for a long period of time have done work different. So I think we've done some awful. Thank you for that.
Okay, congratulations. If there's no further business, there's nothing more on the agenda, I will declare the meeting closed. But thank you for your attendance. Thanks, love. Now, we've just got to tidy the room a bit. We've got refreshments starting at 4 o'clock, I believe, for us. Therese, is it?
Yes.
And have we got a full band of people coming at 35? You don't know who? Well, we don't know. Thank you, Maria. Are you staying on?